Okay, everyone, it's 11:01. Thanks for joining today's Princeton Mortgage Pro Series webinar. If this is the first time you're joining us, welcome. And if not, we're glad to see you again. Today, Mark Gordon is going to take us through why to-do lists are evil. There's going to be a QR code on your screen in a few minutes that Mark will reference. So make sure you have your phone and we'll have downloads to help you follow along during this session. I'm going to pass it over to Mark now to get things started.
Awesome. Thanks, Liz. I appreciate it. Welcome guys to the webinar. I hope you guys if you're joining for the first time, thank you, like she said, and we're going to recap kind of what we went over last time as these topics are integrated. Today's topic is achieving your dreams. To-do lists are evil. And before we get started, I want to say that having a to-do list can be better than not having any sort of organizational tool, but talk very specifically about the pitfalls of to-do lists and why we love them, and really share some theory behind that so that you understand where we're coming from. But mostly what I want everybody to walk away from today is with a couple of tools that you can start building on to help you become more direct in getting things done and accomplishing more in a shorter period of time. And this all flows through our Princeton selling system, and we spend a lot of time. It's hard to cram this stuff into 45 minutes, so we're going to keep it very high level today, but realize that we then spend weeks and weeks and weeks with people building out these skills and working through it once they take this stuff on. So we're going to cover the webinar one recap. We're going to talk about the Eisenhower Matrix, why people love to-do lists, then the problems and pitfalls with to-do lists, and then two things that we do here that eliminate to-do lists for us, and how we use these tools, Scorecard and Calendar, to accomplish more in less time. So last time we talked about objectives and key results, which is our high-level goal-setting framework. A lot of us, when we start setting goals, or one of the reasons we don't set big, hairy, audacious goals for ourselves, it's very hard for us to set a goal unless we know how we're going to get there. We talked a lot about how we don't want to operate that way when we're setting goals. We actually want to figure out what we want our life to look like, and then use key results on a quarterly basis, along with the scorecard and calendar stuff we're going to talk about today, to help you devise the plan for how you're going to get there. But if you wait until you know how to accomplish something great to set the goal for it, you probably won't set those goals. You won't push yourself to do that. And so again, last time we focused on how we set those big, hairy, audacious goals for ourselves, or objectives, right? And the difference between you're going to set an objective, writing it down, sharing it with somebody, you can up your chances of completing it to 76%. Whereas if you keep a goal kind of hidden away in the back of your mind, you don't tell anybody about it, or you have a New Year's resolution you don't share with anybody, you only actually have an 8% chance of pulling that off, right? And so 1 out of 12, we can get from 1 out of 12 to 3 out of 4 if we do these things and follow that process. And so hopefully you have your objectives, you have your key results. Now we're going to talk about how we turn that into action and actually making those things happen, right? So Eisenhower it kind of gives us a little bit of a framework that we have in order to figure out where do we start with this stuff in terms of how do we prioritize what we're going to do and what we're not going to do. And so I'll give you the Eisenhower Matrix here. It's very simple, right? It's a simple concept. The important and urgent activities that come up, right? These are the things as a realtor or as a loan officer, and we're teaching this to loan officers, you do because they make sense, right? A customer calls, the prospective, someone calls and say, hey, I'm looking to list my house. Somehow we always make time for that call, right? No one's ever too busy for that call, the important, urgent stuff, right? Or, hey, I have a question about my contract, and it's like something that's going to make the deal fall through. You're going to take that call. If it's really important, you wouldn't be where you are, or you wouldn't be successful at all if you weren't really good at the important and urgent stuff, right? We're also pretty good at urgent and not important stuff. The question is, are we doing that ourselves, or do we have processes to delegate those things? Do we have people on our team? Do we outsource some of that? Do we have a transaction coordinator? Do we have this thing? I think, what are the important, but the not important, but urgent things that come up? That do we have a plan for that? And is that stuff getting in our way? And then also our not important, but urgent stuff of, oh, I have my little red light on my Facebook stuff. I have 3 new notifications. I have to click on that. How do those things distract us from this other category, which is what we're going to talk a lot about today? And the most important one is the important but non-urgent stuff, right? This is the first stuff. So this is actually the $500 or $1,000 an hour work that you do. This is how you become at the top of your field. It's being disciplined about your important but non-urgent stuff. It's also the first thing we stop doing at the signs of stress, at the signs of change in our lives, when things come up. And we will actually not only allow this important but urgent stuff to take away from the non-urgent important stuff, but we'll also let all of this stuff down here, this noise, derail us from the important but not urgent stuff, even though everyone knows that we call this working on your business. This is working in your business. We all know that this is the most important piece, right? But it's the first one to go away. And when I often talk to people who are at the top of their field and they're stressed and ask them, how much time do you spend? This is the prospecting. This is the designing your mailers. This is the follow-up phone calls that you do with your customers. All the things that actually help you build your business and get more business, we stop doing them right away. And so we want to figure out how we're going to spend the time here. This is actually the most important. If you're going to accomplish something amazing, your big, hairy, audacious goals, you can never do it just living on this side of the chart. You have to do it here, right? Important, but not urgent. That's what we talk about here all the time. And guys, really, if you want to keep your cameras off, that's okay. But if you turn them on, I'd love to see you guys. It'd be great to have you guys as interactive as possible. So Eisenhower said, okay, hey, we're going to do the important things first, quickly, important but not urgent, get them scheduled on a calendar. That's what we're going to talk about. What we do right now with these things often is we put them on to-do lists, right? Or by the way, we say we have a habit around them, but then we don't follow our habits for those things. And so they just get lost. So I want to talk a little bit about to-do lists. I'm going to say it again. We had to-do lists because they work better than having nothing. They also make us feel really good, right? It's an accomplishment just to write down the to-do list. It's an accomplishment to cross something off. I mean, you've heard the old adage, like at the top of your to-do list, make a to-do list on the top and then cross it off so you can feel really good about yourself and how that goes. There's a bunch of problems with that though. So the reason we started making to-do lists is because in general, people have about 15 projects they're working on at any given time. That's what Harvard Business Review says in their study, right? And it's overwhelming to keep that all in your head and juggle it, right? Like just remember, and by the way, all of this stuff takes up space, right? And so when you have this to-do list in your head, even when it's on paper, right? But especially when it's in your head, it's like, don't forget to, don't forget to, don't forget to. And that actually takes up a whole lot of our mental energy, our aptitude to be able to, it takes away from our creative thinking, takes away from doing our best work because we have space in our brain that's being held by that. So by writing on the to-do list, there's a little bit of relief. It's like, it's on the list now, I won't forget, right? That temporary relief of I won't forget, right? And that's good, feels really good, right? The problem with that is that there is no plan to do the things on your to-do list. They're just there. I'm gonna do them, they're on my to-do list. Feels good, there's no plan. In fact, if you're honest with yourself, you've probably written things down on your to-do list that you knew you weren't gonna get to today, but you just didn't want to forget. And so you write it down, that therapy of writing that thing down. It's like, you're saying there is no way I can get this done, but I'm going to put it on the list anyway. And that gets to the core issue of why to-do lists are evil. They allow you to say yes to everything. We say yes to too many things, and we do it without any sort of thought or responsibility for the things that are important but non-urgent. So everything you say yes to means you said no to something else. But with a to-do list, you never know what that thing is. Let me say it again. Saying yes to anything means saying no to something else, but you don't know what it is if you're operating off of a to-do list. So maybe it's time with your kids, time with your family, time at the gym, right? Time doing your important but non-urgent prospecting work, your marketing stuff, your mailers, your posts on social media. All of this gets taken up by the urgent and your to-do list, right? And so what we're doing is we do prioritize anyway, right? We go through our list, and how do we prioritize the things on our to-do list? If we just put them on a to-do list, we do the things that we want to do first. Well, that's not the best way to prioritize, is it? To do it just because we want to do it first means it's easy, or we like it, or it's fast, or it's going to feel good to cross it off the list. That's not the best way to prioritize. Often the things that are most important are things that we aren't excited about doing, or are going to take a longer period of time, or we need to be in a creative headspace for. And so by just throwing them on the list, actually what we're doing is saying, I know I need to do this. It's going to feel good to get it on the paper, but I'm giving myself a false sense of that dopamine rush, right? It's like you feel you accomplished something, but really all you did was just say yes to something else without saying no to something else. So then what ends up happening? We burn out. We start letting people down, right? Because we have so much stuff we said yes to. With yes, I'll do that thing. Yes, I'll go to that thing. Yes, I'll go to that place. Yes, I'll get that thing done. And by the way, you know what happens? Getting your oil changed ends up being on your to-do list every day for 5 weeks until your engine seizes. This has actually happened to people that I know, right? Because getting your oil changed is never the most urgent thing until it is. And so we end up having these things that sneak up on us that would be relatively small problems. If we put them on a calendar to do them, we'll talk about the skill set beyond that. We could let go of those things and really let go and open that creative space in our brains. And putting them on the to-do list, by the way, it does create a little creative space, because now you're not saying I have to remember to do it, but now you still have all that space being taken up by the when am I going to do it? How am I going to do it? Or that guilt of knowing you're actually not going to do it sucks up that creative energy and you can't do your best work. So one of the things I really want to talk to you guys about too is, what is the $500 an hour work that you do in your business? And what is the $15 an hour work that you do in your business? And how often are you prioritizing $15 an hour work at the expense of $500 an hour work? How can we say no to that $15 an hour work? How can we plan for our business, right? And so again, the reason why we started last week with objectives and key results as we went through this is because you have to know what your why is and where you're going in a bigger sense first before you can start prioritizing. But here's the deal. If I know my job is to get Princeton Mortgage to 50,000 loans a year by 2028, I can't afford any time where I'm doing $15 an hour work, because I have to be doing the $500 an hour work of going out and recruiting more loan officers and making sure they have what they need and making sure that they're happy. And for you guys in your business, you have to have that overarching step too. So the to-do list feels really good. And it's better than doing nothing, right? There's a great book called The Guide to Getting Things Done. And it firmly believes in to-do lists, but they have to-do lists that are like super complicated with ranking systems and moving things around and prioritizing and all this other stuff. And that's fine. That's certainly better than just having a regular to-do list. But I think the way that we do this stuff is best. And so I'm going to walk you through that right now. The alternative to having a to-do list. So I kind of went all, I should have slipped through those slides. I get excited. I just keep ranting. But 41% of the items on a to-do list never get completed. Does that feel about right to you guys? 41%? Feels about right to me when I used to do to-do lists. It was like, man, and it's always the same stuff. And it's, by the way, sometimes it's the most important thing, right? But it's just not so urgent I have to do it. And so it just goes and goes and goes, right? And I'm sure all of you guys have things in your business right now that you know you should be doing that you're actually never getting to. That would make a huge difference for your business. And you know what the answer is? It's kind of because you're not excited about that work. You don't want to do it. And it's kind of because it's never urgent. And so you're just like, well, it's fine. I'll get to it later, without any sort of plan to actually do it. And then we result in no behavior changes, right? This is one of my favorite quotes, changed my life. Warren Buffett. The difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything, right? So the first thing to be successful is you have to be able to be the kind of person who gets a lot of opportunities, or where the work comes and finds you and there's a lot to do. What we want to teach you guys to do is be really thoughtful about what you say no to, okay? So the first thing is, let's talk about your scorecard. In your business, and this is regardless, any sort of sales that you do or anything that's sales related, the important but non-urgent work should be about 10 to 12 hours a week. Less than that, it means you're not investing in your business enough. More than that, it means you're setting yourself up for failure or stress. Again, this is our time where we want to be in our most creative headspace, have the most amount of freedom. We want to do our best work here. This is the $500 to $1,000 an hour work, right? So 10 to 12 hours a week on the important but non-urgent stuff, right? What should be on your scorecard? So we talked about key results last time. Let's say my objective is I want to be the #1 realtor in my MSA. I live in Charleston, #1 realtor in Charleston, right? And I want to do it by, maybe you put a date on it. I want to do it by 2030. Cool. Key results. What are the things I need to do in this quarter, in Q2 coming up, that are going to let me know pass, fail if I'm on my way to do it? So maybe it's I need to do 20 transactions this quarter. I need to hire a new transaction coordinator for my team. And I need to make sure that I get 2,000 more followers on Instagram. Those are real key results, measurable, that when we wake up on June 30th are going to be pass, fail. The things that are going to go on your scorecard are the important but non-urgent activities that you say to yourself at the beginning of the quarter, if I do these things consistently every week, I'm very confident I'm going to hit my key result, right? Because again, the whole point of this is we're so bad at saying, my dream is to be number one. What should I do today? We can't do those two things. So we have to build this bridge. So the first part of the bridge is, what are my quarterly key results? 20 transactions, hire a world-class transaction coordinator, and what was the last thing I said? and 2,000 new Instagram followers. So then on my scorecard, what am I going to do for that, right? It's like, well, I want to make sure that every week I'm having 54 conversations with my workflow. I want to make sure I'm doing at least 2 interviews with potential transaction coordinators every single week. I want to make sure I'm sending out a marketing email designing and sending out a marketing email to all of my prospects or my sphere of influence every single week. I want to make sure I'm having 50 times where I'm liking or commenting on social media to keep my engagement up with my followers. All those things can go on your scorecard, that important but non-urgent work, and I'll kind of walk you through it. But all of that is with the idea that these are going to make sure that when I wake up on June 30th, I'm going to have achieved my key results. So this is an example of the scorecard that we actually use here at Princeton. Some people really get into this, but we stole a lot of this from Ninja Selling. Some people only use the calculation part of it here. Both things are okay. And I know if you scan this QR code, we're going to send this to you. We'll also send you a copy of our calendar template so that you guys can see it. But high level, I'll just kind of comment on this. We start here with, what are our gratitudes? We want to spend time every day talking about what we're grateful for, start off our day with that. We want to have all these forward conversations. And for our loan officers, it's some with realtors, some with potential borrowers, some with people that we're recruiting, whatever it is. We want to have a certain amount of, by the way, Ford stands for family, occupation, recreation, or dreams. 3 to 5 minute conversations with people in our networks that we stay in touch and build relationships. So that's a big part of our scorecard. And we get points for every one of these out of a 100-point scale. We want to have our social media posts and our social media interactions. We want to call all of our in-process customers during the course of the week and have conversations with them, right? We want to attend our 2 sales trainings every week so we continue to grow and get better. We want to have our one-on-ones and then consider some other things that you have here that you might add in here, like, oh, did I do my marketing requesting? Did I do this and that? Whatever is important to you to get to your key results should be on your scorecard. And your scorecard should change as your key results change, right? So, one of the things I got wrong when I first rolled this out of Princeton, I was like, this is the scorecard. Everybody should do this stuff. I disagree with that completely in hindsight. It's actually, this is about what are the important but non-urgent things you want to do that you're not doing. And this will draw focus to them. And at the end of every week, when you look at your scorecard, and it's just for you, it's a mirror. And the mirror says to you, am I behaving the way that I wish I was behaving or that I want to behave to hit my goals? And then you can iterate and grow from there. Additionally, if you're getting 100 on your scorecard every week, but it looks like you're going to miss your key results, either you don't have the right stuff on your scorecard or you're not executing on those activities. But these are the activities that are going to lead to the results. And we talked last time a lot about the difference between results and activities. Okay. So build this out. And by the way, I think it's really helpful to keep track in here of all the things you do and the people that you talk to. But if that's too much for you, I understand. Some of the best realtors I've ever worked with having a scorecard that they carry around with them at all times and are constantly updating. So they draw focus to the things that they think are most important, this important but non-urgent work. So here's the other part of the Eisenhower advice, the important but non-urgent stuff. We're going to schedule it. So I'm gonna hop into this in a second, but these are some tips. Before I do that, I'm actually gonna pull up my actual calendar for next week. Can you guys see that, or did it not share to that? Do I have to do a new share? Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing there for 1 second. And we're gonna do a new share. So this is my actual calendar, and I think it's gonna be really helpful. It lets me share it. There we go. To see this. This is my calendar for next week. Can you guys see it now? Awesome. So as you'll see here, everything in my life is in here. And this is public, by the way, to most of the people I work with on a day-to-day basis. This is my, I know always what I'm saying no to tool. Everything I do goes into here. Now I'll say this, so the things I can get done in less than 5 minutes, I keep in my email, and I have time in here where I go in and do those things. Anything that I need to do or want to do that's going to take more than 5 minutes goes into the calendar. If it doesn't fit in the calendar, awesome. That means I know now that I need to say no to something. Okay. So we get really intentional about our time. So what goes in the calendar first? The things that go in the calendar first are the things that I'm not willing to give up no matter what. Number 1, date night with my wife, Thursday nights. It's in there first. Then as you'll see here, she actually went ahead and booked a reservation and sent me a calendar for that. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Anchorman, but Ron Burgundy will say anything that's on the teleprompter. Mark Gordon will do whatever's in his calendar. So if my wife wants me to do something, she puts in the calendar and then it's as good as done, right? And I live by this, right? So then I have other things in here. I have dinner. Oh, Kate's on the call. I have dinner at Kate's next Tuesday. I didn't even see it. It's on there, right? And so you'll see here that I can book up all this white space is extra time or time for whatever's urgent that comes up, right? But all of the stuff that's really important to me. So this is my important but non-urgent prospecting, right? This is my 10 to 12 hours a week. It's blocked out here. Now, what you'll notice is even places like this or this that I have an hour and a half blocked off, I don't have 1 hour and a half block. I have 3 30-minute blocks. Why? Well, here I got asked to do a podcast, right? And he's like, this is the only time I can do it. I'd like you to come on my podcast. Well, I wanted to prioritize that. But now I would have to move my entire hour and a half block. I don't want to do that. So now all I'm going to do is make sure I still do the same amount of prospecting time. Because remember, that's the $500 an hour work. I got to prioritize that. So I'm going to move that over here. Hopefully, it's going to let me move it. It won't let me move it, but normally I just drag and drop and move that over. For some reason, I'm having technical difficulty. And now I can do this and I move this somewhere else, right? Other thing that happens, right? Let's say I'm cruising through this 90-minute time period. And this is what loan officers sometimes, you don't understand. I can't time block. My clients call me, they need me. Maybe. Some of the most successful loan officers and realtors I know have voicemails that say, today is, March 2nd. I'll be returning phone calls today between 1 and 2 and 4 and 5. If it's an emergency, call this person. But if you're attached to being urgent and that's part of how you grow your business, great. So if I'm halfway through this time period here and I get in here and I have something that's urgent that comes up, here's what happens to most salespeople. I go do that urgent thing and then I go back and I go, well, the time period's already screwed and just skip it and move on, right? What I actually want to be able to do is say, okay, fine, I blew it in this time block. Now I'm moving to a new time block. I'm going to get back into my prospecting, or I'm going to take this and I'm going to move this one somewhere else, right? And so this allows me to be super intentional, right? First is my family time. If you see here, I got time with my kids in the morning, my workout time, I play tennis, time to get ready for work or I'm in the shower. This is the time I wake up every single day. Yes, I'm an early riser, right? And so, but I know what I'm saying no to when something else comes up. So this is a profit share follow-up conversation that I got scheduled today. Katie just sent me this calendar, right? I looked at it and I was like, I got to say yes to this. This is a really important conversation. Now I know I got to move these 2 blocks somewhere else, right? Where am I going to move it to? But essentially, I never want to give up my $500 to $1,000 an hour work. This is the time I'm going to spend finding the future people that work at Princeton Mortgage that are going to make a difference for us on our journey to 50,000 loans a year. I cannot give that up. As soon as no one else is going to be able to do that the way that I can do it, right? Everything else on here could be done by someone else. Also, you'll see my one-on-ones on here are super prioritized and I have breaks built in between, right? Because I want to make sure that I need my creative headspace, those conversations. So I need to leverage that half hour I spend with Dave so that Dave can spend the other 39 and a half hours in his week executing at a really high level. I want to maximize my creative energy during that time period. Lastly, you'll see I have time built in every day to respond to emails and do those urgent or non-urgent 5-minute tasks. I have that built in. But as you'll see here, twice this week, I got bumped. I don't even know what this is, but apparently I got booked for that. And then I have a drinks with a guy I know down here. So you'll see here, I write the schedule. I move this 15-minute block right here so that I can have a little bit more time, right? In order to respond to those emails, I blocked that out in those 15 minutes. So I said, this meeting I said no to this time, I have to say yes to it somewhere else. Because I'm not going to leave for the day without doing that, right? And again, so how much are you being intentional with where your time goes? This looks like a lot to manage. It's actually the habits that you can build in 1 month. 1 month of doing a scorecard, 1 month of living your calendar this way, you will never go back, right? So I'm going to stop sharing that. I'm going to get back to our presentation, share there. So to recap some of the strategies that we just went over, schedule any activities that you're unwilling to give up first. Your family, your friends, your date nights, your kids. you will be very resentful and less effective if your work is stealing that time. And by the way, if you realize that you're losing that time, then maybe it's time you get an assistant, that you build your business differently. You have to be able to consciously prioritize. 2, break the remainder of your calendar into 15-minute or 30-minute blocks. So you have the 10 to 12 hours a week. Don't just put 3 hours on Wednesday that says make phone calls, because you will get interrupted. You will feel overwhelmed by that. And you can't move that 3-hour block anywhere else. You're setting yourself up for failure. Smaller blocks, even if they're next to each other. Assign blocks to all of your important but non-urgent scorecard items, right? So again, we have our big, hairy, audacious goal. We have our quarterly key results. We have our scorecard, which is the activities that are going to help us achieve our quarterly key results. We're going to take everything on our scorecard and put it in our calendar. Because if you don't put it in the calendar, it's a wish list, not a scorecard. So do you see the difference now between to-do lists and this? A to-do list is a wish list for things you're hoping to do. A scorecard and a calendar is a plan to do them. So if you think it felt good to put down, I got to get my oil change on the to-do list, you think that gave you some energy back? Imagine if you put it on your calendar that between 9:30 and 10:30 next week, I'm going to get my oil changed. And now you can completely let go of that as something in your brain. You can completely release it, because now you're not saying I have to remember to do it and when am I going to do it? You're saying it's as good as done. Once it's in my calendar, I can let go of it like I already did it. And that was life-changing for me. The difference between writing down, get your oil changed, to setting an appointment for 9:30 to 10:30 next week and knowing what that means I have to say no to. Because by the way, if you go back to my calendar, you'll see that I'm missing my tennis time on Thursday to get my oil changed. But I was willing to give that up. It sounds silly when you say it like that, but that's real, right? And so well, it's either that or, I don't get my oil changed and maybe my car explodes, or just the engine seizes, right? So we have to prioritize those things, but I want to know what I'm saying no to when I say yes. Right? When I gotta get a haircut, it's the same thing. It's like I gotta know what I'm saying no to say yes. So block off time where you'll handle any urgent tasks. Have time built in at the end of the day, especially for anything that you can do quickly and urgently. Right? And by the way, you can build huge time blocks of just nothing time, creativity time, whatever you want to do the urgent things. You have control of your calendar, right? Some of the most successful people I know only schedule 20 to 25 hours of their week, and they have everything else blocked out for whatever comes up, or creativity thinking time, right? If something is urgent, must take over one of your scorecard blocks, reschedule the scorecard item, reschedule that calendar entry, right? So in other words, it's like, I've missed this time, cool, where am I going to go put that time back? Or if you're not putting it back, realize, wow, was that phone call, that 15-minute phone call worth saying no to, 15 minutes of prospecting? How much money did I cost myself on that $500 an hour work by taking that phone call? Be really conscious of it if you're not going to reschedule it. And by the way, don't worry about getting this perfect. Just start doing it. Just start. Here's the sample calendar that we gave out when we first started doing this. And you'll see here, I didn't figure out the 30-minute time block thing right away. You can start this way, right? But all the different things for my loan officers that we were getting started for the day, building those things in here, being very intentional with our time. And again, if you you click that QR code, we'll send that over to you. That is the meat and bones of the presentation today, right? And so I'm going to open up to questions, but just to kind of recap again, to-do lists are the feeling it gives you is a fake sense of accomplishment. 41% of the things you put there, you're not going to do. We know that. That's what the research tells us. We know we want to do this because we have as many as 15 projects we're working on at any given time. I was meeting with the marketing team before this, and they have a crazy amount of things on their key results they need to get done for Q2. Like when we came out of Q2 planning, it was like, hey, marketing team, we need you to build everything under the sun, right? The best work is done, by the way, when we have deadlines and not enough time. But they have to be super thoughtful and deliberate with every minute of every day as we go forward this quarter, or they will not hit their goals, right? And having a to-do list is a plan for insanity. Courtney, who runs our marketing team, will tell you that before she started operating this way, I would often get emails from her at 3 o'clock in the morning because she would say yes to everything without a plan. And by the way, she was going to get it done. She just decided not to sleep anymore. By the way, she had 4 little kids while she was doing it. And it was like, yeah, I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. We can do it. I can do it. I can do it. We can do it. And the answer is sometimes the answer is no, you can't. And so I always go back to that Buffett quote, right? The difference between successful people and the most successful people is the most successful people say no to almost everything. Pick your spots and your opportunities. So I'll turn it over to you guys. What questions do you have that I can answer for you? Or are there any other feedback that you have about the presentation? I know no one ever wants to be the first person.
I have a question, Mark, just in
Sure.
terms of, so say you have like ideas that you're thinking about long-term projects. Do you like keep a running list? Do you automatically set aside time to start working on those, even if they're like projects you foresee like 6 months out? How do you, if they're not immediate to-dos, how do you organize that?
Well, so you have to decide, right? So if I'm not going to start working on the thing at all right now, then I might as well put on a whatever. I'll put a calendar entry to revisit when I might want to start this 2 weeks from now, right? Or 3 weeks.
Like a
4 weeks
creative
from now, right?
list or something.
Right. But if I'm starting Q2 now and I'm like, hey, in Q2, I got to get this thing done. I'm not committing to this team here that I can do it unless I can literally right now find and block out the time I'm going to do it in my calendar. And by the way, everything takes 1.5 times as long and costs 1.5 times as much as you think. So when you're budgeting this stuff, if I think a project is a 15-hour project, I'm budgeting 22 hours in my calendar for it. Because it's going to take 1.5 times as long as I think. Right. And so until you get really good at projecting how long something's going to take, always give yourself extra time. So, but the answer is yes. No matter how long-term a project is, I will not say yes to it until I have the time blocked out to get it done. It's a recipe for driving yourself crazy. Right. Or to waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning to do the work. What other questions? It's cool. We're just going to post this on YouTube for the entire world to see. So no pressure with your question. Nobody?
I have a question.
Sure.
How do you determine kind of the color coding that you are using on your calendar? Because right now I kind of do mine by department, but it seems like you do yours by priority.
So a couple different things about that. One is I think I've noticed that different personality types or different people have like a very different relationship with the colors in their calendar. For some people, it is like the most important thing in the world that all the colors match and they tell a different story and that they're very into it. I have to admit, like I'm very like in the middle on this. Like if it's wrong or like it doesn't really bother me that much. But really what it is for me is when I take a very high level look at my day, it tells me what kind of a meeting I'm going to be doing, right? So my orange is my one-on-ones with people, right? So when I see that, I know I'm going to be in that headspace. When I see that bright pink color, it's like, cool, I'm going to bring my energy for my important but non-urgent prospecting calls. Like I'm on, it's my fire, right? When I see like my beige is like my appointment with my therapist every week on Fridays. It's like it gets me in my calm headspace in order to have that meeting and make it most effective. And so really for me, it's just about being able to take a very quick look at it and know what I have on the agenda for that day and the mood that I'm going to be in for me through that color when I do it. At the same time, I'm not as crazy about it as some people. Like my wife, everything has a color that means something to her and it's super pretty and super intense. And I didn't even know there were extra colors. She like found a way to put like new extra colors in the calendar. And so like that stuff is a little bit less important to me that way, but whatever gets you excited about living this way, you should lean into. And so if the color coding and the tab, like, you know, whatever the thing is that gets you going, lean into it, right? Because I think whatever time you be like, oh, I'm gonna spend more time being organized than it takes to do this stuff. No, you won't. You will not. These are muscles you build in the beginning. It's time consuming. And after 3 or 4 weeks of it, it takes almost zero time and it becomes very satisfying. Right? And your stress level will go down tremendously. Right now, most of you guys are living in a world of I've said yes to everything. I don't know how I'm going to do it. And you're like, well, why am I stressed? Or why am I not conscious in the time I'm spending with my kids or with my wife or with my husband? It's like your brain's always somewhere else. It's like, yeah, because you're worried you're letting the whole world down. You don't know when you're going to get to the stuff. By having it all on your calendar, you get very intentional about it. And it is a game changer. There's a whole different way of living in, but here's the biggest thing it does, right? I want to say this again. Writing down, get your oil changed does provide some relief because now you're not worried you're going to forget to do it, but you still don't have a plan to do it. And that still takes up a bunch of creative space. By living this way where everything has a time and it's almost like it's done the minute you put it in the calendar, right? All of your other time you get back, that discipline equals freedom. The discipline of being delivery time equals in all the other time, when there's white space in my calendar, I literally have nothing to do. Right? Like I can go do whatever I want and I don't have to feel guilty about it. I get to be present for it. I get to go be creative about it. I get to go pick up a book or watch a movie or whatever else thing I'm going to do that's going to be in my most creative space because I get that time back. If you're overbooked, you said yes to everything, there's never free time. That's, by the way, we end up drinking or we end up people getting high when they get home so they can escape. I don't want to think about all the stuff I have to do. I just want to be able to escape this moment and do this thing. And it becomes, well, as soon as you get home from work, I got that glass of wine so I can shut it off. Right? Because I want to be able to let go of all those thoughts that are dancing in my head. Right? But you can do it. You can put it in that calendar and move forward with it. Right? And so it's very liberating when you get it right. Any other questions or anything else that triggered or brought up?
Are you going to put that QR code back up on that calendar thing? Not that one, the other one that
Yeah, if you
The
send us the
QR code has
QR code, we will
both
get you.
docs.
We will get you both docs, and
Okay.
I'll actually see if I can get you a copy of my calendar. Also, maybe sans a name or two that I'll take out, so that you guys can see that as well.
Yeah, that would be helpful for me.
Absolutely, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So I have my hand up.
Oh, hi, Steve. Tell me.
Sure. So I'm here as a guest, and I appreciate the invitation. Enjoyed the presentation. Hi, Ray. How's it going? And I am sending your book today, I promise. It's on my calendar now.
There you go. Do you have any questions, Steve, or you just wanted to say that you enjoyed it?
No, I just wanted to say I enjoyed it. No, I have no questions.
Awesome.
I like to deal in answers, if you know what I mean.
Perfect.
But by
Tracy,
the way, you got to ask questions first. You always leave with questions.
there you go. That was actually our training. this
Or should I
morning.
not say, what do you always lead with?
There you go.
A
Tracy,
question.
did you have a question?
I just want to say I'm also a guest. Hi, Barb. Barb Sednov and I work very closely together, and I'm a list girl, man. I have a notebook. I fold pages over. I write stuff down. I get excited to scratch stuff off. But I feel starting slow for someone like me, that's how I use it. Starting slower is maybe a better way for me to try that. Like putting the oil change and putting the haircut, putting the solid things that I know, and then just gradually moving over to, change is hard. Obviously, I've been doing this for 10 years as an agent, and that's how I started out doing it. So that's how I do it. But I love I'm all about color codes and all that kind of stuff. But I feel like for someone like me, being a list maker, starting slow is probably the best way for me to try to transfer over to that part of it. I love all of that. It's overwhelming to me. Like, oh my God, how do I get it to start?
So here's how I would start. First thing first. I have 3 computer monitors. I have my computer and 2 monitors. One of them is always my calendar.
Right.
Nothing goes on that screen except for my calendar. It's always usually like right here on my left. That's my calendar. Nothing else goes there. My calendar is always up. So start there. 2, schedule in the personal things that you're not willing to give up. Start there. And by the way, make them recurring. Like I don't build that every week. 90% of the stuff you just saw on that calendar is just recurring every single week.
Right.
I build it once, I build it out forever, right?
Right.
And I can change it. If it's not forever, I'll change it later, right? But so I build that calendar. Most of it is built before we start, right? And so if you can build out the important but non-urgent things that you do. So in other words, your prospecting time, your follow-up calls, your sphere of influence calls, put time in there for that, put time in there for your personal stuff and make that recurring. And just say like, okay, I'm not willing to give that stuff up anymore. And then have that on a monitor and then start beating yourself up when you don't do the stuff on your calendar.
I also play tennis, and I certainly would not give up tennis for an oil change, but good luck with that.
I play almost every day. I have to do it.
Yeah.
But I appreciate
So,
it.
but thank you. It's a lot of great information.
No, are you in Pittsburgh?
Greensburg, but yeah, close to Pittsburgh.
Next time I'm there, we'll play. We'll do it.
I'll beat you.
I bet. Any other questions from the group? All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you making time for the presentation today. Hope you got a lot out of it. We are going to send you guys a survey. beat me up, tell me what we can do better. We want to create as much value as possible for these. Tell us what you liked, what you didn't like. I really appreciate it. But thank you guys so much for coming. And we do have another one of these coming up, Liz, in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Awesome. So we'll get you, also there'll be a link. You can share this with somebody else on the recorded version. But we look forward to seeing you then. Thanks so much, everybody.